This is the Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.
Hi everyone, my name is Matt. I was diagnosed with GBM or glioblastoma in December 2021. I had no symptoms prior to this, and it was all a hell of a shock. I had a job that I loved, I really enjoyed doing, and I took everybody out for a Christmas dinner. After that dinner, we went to the pub, Surprise. And next day, I had a bit of a sore head, but I thought, hey, no big deal. But it didn't get better. It got worse. And by the following Sunday, my speech was slurring. So I knew that was a neurological symptom. And from that, we went to local hospital. They diagnosed me in A and E with a stroke, which I did not actually believe, but hey. And then they sent me home. And 3 a.m. the following morning, I woke up because I was fitting focal seizures, which meant I couldn't speak, my face was twitching, and I was drooling. I knew this was now a serious neurological symptom, so we went back to A&E. This time they gave me an MRI, which showed a 33 mil tumour in my right parietal lobe, which I guess in some respects was quite lucky because that's not a very fluent area of the brain. And it was quite peripheral and therefore a candidate for surgery. So I was then sent home with an awful lot of dexamethasone, and we waited, I think, 2-3 weeks. About 2-3 weeks in complete isolation because it was COVID lockdown as well. And then we had surgery on New Year's Eve 2021. I came out of that with relatively no deficits to speak of, luckily. And then followed what's called the standard of care, which consists of TMZ, which is a chemo, Temozolomide, and radiation simultaneously. You then get a month off, and following that, you go on high-dose Temozolomide. I should point out for anybody who receives this diagnosis, radiation has its X-rays, no pain, no feeling of it at all, but you get extremely tired. The fatigue builds till peaking, or troughing possibly, at 2 weeks after it completed. And by that point, I'm falling asleep every time I sit down or on the sofa. In the very beginning, I found Macmillan very helpful because there is so much, it blows your mind, quite apart from the psychic shock of being told, yeah, you're a dead man, woman, walking. So they said, sign this letter of authority and we will sort out your benefits for you. And they did all that. I didn't have to attend any meetings, do any forms. They just did the whole thing. It was really, really good, including right up to it and including the blue badge for Nancy's car. So following that, second part is high-dose Temozolomide, or TMZ, and that I tolerated very well, actually. I went back in for a scan, and we are now about a year out. I went back for a scan. It showed 2 small recurrences right in the center of the brain, inoperable. So I was pretty much panicking by that point. So I was looking into alternative treatments, of which there are quite a few. But the most effective, which is being trialled at King's College, London, is a dendritic cell vaccine. Unfortunately, to make that, the hospital has to flash freeze your fresh tumour samples. But doing that is not a part of standard procedure, so I did not have any. I had to find an alternative that did not require this. So what I did, I managed to find it. By the way, you might be aware that in Germany, rules on medical research on human cells are much more lax, and these treatments are available in Germany. So I found a clinic that provided what is effectively what we call a peptide vaccine. You pay, of course. I did a lot of research on this. So I've had now 4 of those vaccine treatments. And I came back. We had also new chemo. I have had lomustine, which is a standard second-line chemo for brain cancers. And then did another scan. I have a stable, no further growth. Then they switched to metronomic, i.e. every day, so low dose of etoposide. After a few months of that and the injections, another MRI, and no evidence of disease, or NED as we now call it most commonly, which means that would have been 22, end of 22, into 23. I then had obviously regular scans, and we stopped the etoposide. Not sure how many, probably about up to 6 months clear scans, 2 clear scans, maybe longer. But I was having more neurological symptoms, mostly related to motor skills, speech. My left leg was dragging and my left hand was going numb. At this point, the hospital looked at the scan and said, "Why is the surgical cavity grey? Because water should show up as black, as there are no cells in it to absorb the contrast dye." Mine was grey. They suspected, and it, as I later proved, that was a massive post-op infection, and it was the infection that was giving me those. So they gave me another MRI, and they suspected there was also recurrence in there. So December 24, I was back into King's for my second surgery, and effectively a brain wash and IV antibiotics, including vancomycin, and which is probably slightly famous for anybody in a medical background. It's the antibiotic of last resort. And I also had a couple of other, meropenem, all sorts, quite a few, all by IV, straight into the bloodstream. That took 6 weeks. I now have more deficits, as you can probably hear, and I have, you see in my mouth, my left, your right, is drooping a bit, but I am still walking and still talking. For that, I'm very grateful. And I have lots of support from my wonderful wife. But, yeah, when I first woke up from the second surgery, that was tough. Because you may not remember it. Your brain, your body remembers the insult. And you will very quickly realize how much damage you've taken. In fact, the surgeon was very good. I said, "How much did you take?" He wouldn't tell me. And what he did say, "I didn't take anything you were using." Either way, my next MRI, which is now back at home, after 6 weeks of IV antibiotics, was indeed clear of cancer. There was cancer in the cavity, but I'm now clear again, and I'm medically retired, so I'm not working, and my wife would tell you I'm a bit bloody minded. And this diagnosis has not actually run down my feeling of self-worth. This month I will hope to go out for dinner. This month I will do this. Never a long way into the distance. Forget, you can't plan for those. Also, I distract myself with routine and really bad media. So think all those movies that include explosions, car chases, lasers. that kind of thing. I watch a lot of those. Yeah, I distract myself. Actually, spending your time brooding, or indeed getting angry, running around, shouting at the sky, is a waste of time, and I don't have much. In fact, none of us do. So I don't see the benefit that. What I do, as I'm a member of a number of support groups online, which I find very helpful, and it makes me feel really good to be able to share my experiences and telling people to ask for treatments that may be outside the standard, because the NHS is slowly changing its view on protocol. You can now ask for a second opinion, which has been on the news quite a bit, or indeed you can ask for treatments in trials and so forth. It does, a lot of it, depend on your oncologist. I've been very lucky. I get on very well with my oncologist. I mean, when I first started this, she always said, I'm not ever going to give you a date, because that is not helpful and probably not true either. You can look it up yourself if you really want to, but I would advise against it. I think that was the smartest advice I got. I always think, in fact, the great quote here, it's very old, most recently. I don't know when that day is, but I do know it's not today, or even tomorrow. I have not changed my diet. I have given up alcohol, and I have almost entirely given up alcohol. The other day we had a glass of champagne, clean scan, but that's all. And I do miss it, especially in English culture and many others. Having a drink is such a big part of our culture. I've also cut out caffeine, decaffeinated. I can talk a lot about caffeinated products, or decaf, which are actually worth having. You want decaf tea? Yorkshire is the best. I know they're not paying me. Yorkshire decaf tea is brilliant. It's best by far for proper brew. I also have decaf coffee, which is probably still got a bit in. I would recommend them try a cup. I think you might be surprised. One of the side effects worth noting, apart from the fatigue, your sense of taste is blown out by the chemo. I couldn't eat anything, carbs especially. Those aromatic flavours like toast, roasted potatoes, were just like eating cotton wool. They had no flavour at all. I lost a lot of weight. In fact, overall, I've now lost 25 kilos, or between 4 and 5 stone. And my general health has actually improved markedly because of that. But I am quite bloody-minded, which my wife says that's my superpower. I'm not a very soft, squidgy person. I am very British. That whole thing, the Black Knight in Monty Python, it's just a scratch. It's fine. I'll walk it off. I'll chop your leg off. But I do feel really bad about, okay, my life is pretty much toast. I have now not what I did, but I'm still alive. But I really feel bad about what it's done to other people's lives, especially my wife. That is not a good time. She is having I make a lot of effort to minimize that. So I've now encouraged her, and she has a full-time job, 2 of them actually, and I encourage that as much as possible so that when I do go, she has a life still. She knows where all the money is. She knows where the insurance papers are, all that. So that, a bit like clearing the decks, for me, being that bit of practical money kind of guy, I had to think about what would Nancy do? What does she need? Not me, what does she need? And I knew that no way she could pay the mortgage, so I paid it off out of my savings. Once that's gone, that's a big thing. I would suggest also will writing. I haven't done that properly yet. We've got a draft, but I haven't done it properly. But get all the paperwork done first. Get it out the way. Then you never have to think about it again. LPA. I hope the audience are familiar with those. They're legal lasting power of attorney. So this means that I have given out all my authority, my ability to handle money, the bank account, insurance, the house, whatever, to my wife, if I am incapable, and also the power to turn me off. That's a second LPA for health. She asked me, how will I know? I said, you know me better than anybody else. You're going to have to use your best judgment, at which point this person, this ego, ceases to exist. If it's just a lump of meat, turn it off and donate anything that's useful. But cancer kind of rules us out of that. The brain possibly for research and corneas. The rest of it is probably not going to be accepted, even though we know that the cancer hardly ever, very, very rarely gets beyond the brain because of the blood-brain barrier. I now, having done this for so long, I know far too much about brain cancers. But on the bright side, I am still walking. I am still talking. And I have plans. Plans help.
This is the Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show. It's a show full of informative chat and inspirational messages. The Aunty M Brain Tumours talk show on podcast.